What's up, everyone? Welcome to the One Club, a podcast for visionaries, builders, and purpose-driven individuals committed to growth, clarity, and meaningful relationships. This isn't motivation. This is transformation. Here we talk business, we talk personal growth, we talk relationships, honestly, intentionally, and without filters. Because building a life bigger than yourself requires more than ambition. It requires standards, discipline, and the courage to become who you're meant to be. If you're here to just consume, this isn't for you. But if you're here to build, to raise your standard, and maximize the potential you were given, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Louis Xavier, and this is the One Club. Let's get into the show. All right. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the One Club podcast. Guys, today I'm excited because we don't just have a guest, but we're also bringing to you a founder, a brand who's way beyond just a clothing brand. You can see it here, Uncommon Clothing, but they're a movement, they're a community. And my guy, Rob, is doing big things down in Florida. We're going to be talking about legacy building, creating wealth, and what it's like actually pursuing holistic success. Without further ado, guys, Rob Bruce. What's up, man?
What's up, brother? Thanks for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
Thank you, man. How are you feeling today?
I'm good. I'll be honest, totally transparent. It's my first podcast, so you lead the way, but this is exciting. I mean, you're doing something super special, and you yourself are creating a movement. And so we've had so much alignment from being part of the masterminds that we're in together. And this was a no-brainer. We had to make this happen. So day's here.
Yeah, man. I'm going to address something real quick. You're not a podcaster, but your background setup is sweet. And I noticed
Thanks,
that from the first time I met you on our mastermind calls and stuff like that. I always noticed that, like, yo, your background's pretty sick.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, I mean, listen, I haven't been on podcasts, but I'm on video calls all the time, right? Serial entrepreneurship. You're always meeting people. You're always networking, and say what you want about how technology has taken away face-to-face interaction, but it's also added a ton of value, right? You're in a different state than I am, but we get to sit here and chop it up for an hour. And so, yeah, you got to do something nice behind yourself so it's presentable rather than the blurry screen or something.
Yeah, seriously, man. That's great. That's great. So let's dive straight into it, man. Like I said, this podcast episode is going to be a lot about creating a legacy, really pursuing holistic success. And I think you are the ideal guest for this because you're young, you're pursuing a couple different ventures, but you're also a married man, and you're living that holistic success life, and you're still building, which is amazing. So I want to give the viewers a little insight of to who is Rob. Like let's talk a little bit about that warm sensation that a young man, maybe 18 to 21, feels in their heart of like, hey, right now I'm serving burgers at McDonald's, but I have this itch inside of me that calls me to want to do something big with my life, calls me to want to create a legacy for myself. What was that situation like for you?
Yeah. That's a great question. And that word legacy is like a word that rings in my head every day now that I wake up. But I'm 31 years old. 10 years ago, I barely knew what that word meant. Like, I didn't think about that. I didn't wake up and think about what my life is going to look like and looking back on my life one day. And you mentioned burning sensation. That I did have. So, I worked construction and landscaping when I was in college. I was a bartender as well, the basic jobs that people do in Florida and stuff. But there were times that I would sit there and I knew that this wasn't what I was going to do forever. I was getting a lot out of it. I was gaining a lot of characteristics with hard work and stuff like that. But I also had a lot of time to just sit in my head. And during that time, I was trying to search, right? And I like to use the word "the search." There's a great artist that his album is called "The Search." People might know it just by saying that, but it stuck with me because I looked at my life as the search. I think a lot of us do. And it's like the search for what's next. And that's not to take me away from like what's grounding me and whatnot. Like I express a lot of time in gratitude and whatnot. But if you're not always looking for something and having a curious and open mindset, you can miss out on a lot of opportunities in life. And when I look back at my life and I think about legacy, I don't want to look back and say, I wish I did it. I might say I wish I did something differently, but that's just hindsight being 2020. I don't ever want to say I wish I'd done it or tried it or something like that. So when I think about that 18 to 21-year-old, it's okay to not know what's going on. It's okay to not have an answer. You're not supposed to have an answer. If you did, then somebody just gave it to you and you didn't walk your own path. You walked their path.
Exactly.
So when I think about legacy now, it's that, like, what do I want my life to look like? At 31 years old, people might think that's crazy, but we're surrounded by a an environment of opportunity and content where we can collaborate like this and really spike our interests about what our life could truly look like, because there's endless
Exactly.
possibilities.
Exactly. I love that you said that because we are truly living in an abundant informational era where it's
Yeah,
like we have so many different resources from AI to like things on YouTube, TikTok, where we have all these different directions and opportunities in front of us where like it's almost really easy for us to create. But now the whole thing is that's holding us back from that is the fact that there's so much outside noise
yeah,
that one day you can decide to create a clothing brand and tomorrow you want to be
yeah,
an accountant kind of thing. So it's just kind of like focusing. That's something that I talk about a lot. Um,
yeah.
let's get some detail on that warm sensation. And let me just give you context. Like for me, growing up, I was raised by two immigrant parents. My father moved and kind of exited my life when I was 14, but I had a mentor at a young age, around 14, 15, called Tony Turksead. He was the owner of or he still is the owner of a Mediterranean food brand, a meal prep company. And he was the one who really opened my eyes to the possibilities of life. The fact that you can be an entrepreneur, you can be free. You don't have to be part of the rat race. You don't have to wait until 65 to retire. Like he installed that mindset into my heart, into my soul, really. And I remember that through that experience working for him, that was like my first time of saying, dang, like I feel this way. Like I want to create something great for me. And it's
Mhm.
actually possible. Like, can you recall what that particular situation was for you?
I that's really cool you had that experience. I had a lot of really great mentors in my life, but I didn't have any that opened my eyes to that. It was a lot of trial and error, and I was very fortunate to be in circles of some really prominent people that took a liking to me and showed me how to do certain things that they were doing.
Mm,
But it was my own, like, curiosity that I was like, what else could Rob be known for? So when you talk about kind of starting off and whatnot, is like, yeah, I started off as an insurance broker. I still do that, but that allowed me to get into the network of a lot of real estate individuals and see what that was about. So I got my real estate license and invested in a lot of deals. And then I met somebody who really liked to start things and build something. And so I was like, well, let's start a brand. And so then Uncommon Clothing Co. came to the picture. And so it was really just growing through experience and process. And now I'm at a place where, like, I'm obsessed with understanding things and learning things and figuring problems out. Like, people don't like problems, but people love solutions. So
yes.
yeah, that one issue that you might have might be lingering over your head, but the moment you find a solution, you kind of forget you ever had a problem, right? And nobody looks at it. Like, if you read the 7 Habits of the Highly Effective Individual, begin with the end in mind. That's one of them. So no matter what you're facing, think about what it's going to do for you on the back end. And I became obsessed with that thought process. So that burning sensation, I couldn't identify, but I knew that something was going to, I like the burning sensation, but something was going to fill it, right? Make it go away.
Of
And
course.
the thing that I identify was exactly what you're talking about, is helping people, so showing somebody that they could do something that they didn't think they could do. And yeah, maybe that doesn't tie into being an insurance broker, a real estate investor, or having a brand or something like that. But throughout all of those buckets, I'm able to talk to people and I'm able to have
Right.
conversations like this. And my perspective on being a mentor is showing somebody how to do it bigger, better, and faster than you ever did it, without showing them the way. Just making sure they stay on that path, make a mistake, jump back on the path, kind of thing. And so that burning sensation was really just that. It tied into serving a purpose, making an impact, and it didn't matter how. As long as I was doing
Yes.
that, that burning sensation was fulfilled.
That's great, man. I want to touch upon a point that you just made that's huge. And I feel that 18, 20, 25-year-old that maybe listen to this podcast that has that burning sensation, but still feels very far from the vision that they have in mind. It's like the process is pretty simple, but ourselves as human beings, we tend to overcomplicate it. And what do I mean by this? It's that I had that warm burning sensation in my heart, right? And instead of being that person that's like, hey, this is my vision 10 years from life. I want 10 years from now. I want to be living this life. I'm going to figure out what exactly is going to get me there. The chances of that happening on your first shot are slim to none.
No.
But what you do is you start an initial pursuit, right? So you find something that you're extremely passionate about, or a problem that you really feel called to solve, or even like for me, it's like, hey, I'm really good at communicating and I really love connecting with people. So let
Yeah.
me do something around that. And little by little, you will start making gradual improvements that will start pushing you into that direction of fulfilling that long-term vision. So like for you, you had that warm sensation, you couldn't clearly identify it, but you started doing, you started helping people, you started building relationships, and you started doing little pivots in your career subconsciously that have now granted you the reality that you live in. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense, and I think that goes to like the search, right? It's like it's okay not to have the answer. The problem is when somebody doesn't have the answer, they think they're not made for it, or they think they can't do it. And it's like, I don't want to do something that I just got the answer from immediately. Because then it's so cliche, but let's go there. If it's easy, anybody would do it, right? Like it's so true. And it's like when you're growing up, people say that to you, and it's like, it doesn't matter. But when you're in it, and you do it and you experience it yourself, it all clicks. But yeah, I resonate with that 1,000%. At the end of the day, you and I are the same person. Everybody around us is the same person. We all want the same thing. And people could argue that, right? But it's like, what do we want? We want to be healthy, we want to be happy, and we want to live a fruitful and prosperous life. You and I are doing that entirely different ways, but we're both very much living a successful, holistic life. And so
Yes.
essentially, if you look at that logo back there, that's one of our
Yeah.
logos for Uncommon. It's a thumbprint. We all have them, but they're all different. And so I just look at life that way. And so I feel like I can learn something from every single person I cross paths with. And I think I could probably teach something to every single person I cross paths with. So
That's
that's just my
great, man.
perspective.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Let's talk a little bit about let's talk that my inner Long
Yeah.
Islander came out of me. But let's talk about holistic success.
Yeah, let's do it.
And why I want to bring this up is because there are two types of people, right? There's a person who is in pursuit of wealth and abundance financially that sometimes doesn't really prioritize their health
Yeah,
or
yeah,
their relationships or their spirit, but then there's the other person that is truly the 1%, which is who we align with, right? Uncommon in the One Club, which is the person who is the 1% financially, but also across health, spirit, and relationships, right? That's a true 1%. That's holistic success.
yeah,
So what made you want to chase like generating wealth for yourself, but also creating a legacy? Because I feel like
yeah,
that's a
yeah,
little uncommon, no pun intended.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nowadays, people just want the quick dollar, people want the Lambo, people want the penthouse, and forget about the impact or the footprint that they're leaving in this world. Like,
Yeah.
why create a legacy?
Well, there's so much I could say about this. So this is like one of my favorite topics, right? Now that I have that light bulb that went off, 5 or 6 years ago. But yeah, everybody wants to make money, and there's nothing wrong with the nice cars. I have three cars, and one of them's a classic car. I wanted to spend money on a classic car. It was a dream. Nothing wrong with that. The nice watches, the nice house, all that stuff. We live in a time where that is accessible, and I don't think it's wrong to say somebody who's materialistic is living a bad life. That's how they chose to live. Now, if they're only living that way, I would say they're just missing out on everything else that life has to offer. And when you're at the end of your rope and you're sitting there surrounded by your family, or you're sitting out on a rocking chair looking at the sunset, exactly, you're looking at the sunset. You're not looking at your Lambo in the garage.
Mm,
Maybe you left that to somebody and they're like, oh, my grandpa left me a Lambo. That's so sick. I would rather them say about me, my grandpa has 1,000 pages of his thoughts and ideas and efforts that he did when he was in his 30s. And my great grandkids get to sit there and read about that. Like, how
yes.
cool. I wish I could do that about my grandparents and look into their mind when they were my age. So like every time I sit and I journal or I read a book and make a note or anything I'm working on, I think about my great great grandkids looking at that and making a impact on them and serving a purpose in their life. And when I talk about this stuff, I know you enjoy it. I know you align with that. But a lot of people just think, dude, you're crazy, you're too serious, like live in the
Yeah.
moment and all that stuff. And I am, but also delayed gratification is a very powerful thing. And
Yes.
so when I think about holistic, I go back to that question, like I'm actually writing a book right now. I've talked to you about this a little bit, but I'm calling it The Blueprint. And it's that. It's a holistic book that I would like to go speak to universities and students about that. It's a mile wide and an inch deep. It's like, here's everything that I learned over the last 10, 15 years of my adulthood. And here, take it and run with it. Things that I was not taught, I had to learn. But it's the holistic approach. So it's mental, it's physical, it's emotional, it's financial, it's, how to network, it's how to do all of these things, because if you're not a well-rounded individual, you're only going to be known for a couple things. So
Right.
you yourself are very well-rounded. You have a great relationship with your partner. I know you have a new puppy. Like, you're experiencing life with that. You're building businesses. You have friends. You go on good trips. Like, you're living a very fruitful life. And if we all get obsessed with one thing, the other part of life that we could experience just passes us by. And that kind of
Yes.
scares me. So maybe it's fear-based. Um, when I tie holisticness to legacy, I don't want to be looked at as missing a portion of life or a portion of my personality that I could have evolved.
Yes, I love that, man. And the greatest thing for me, at least, is connecting with like-minded individuals. And I know that
Everything.
sounds cliche,
It's
but
everything.
yeah, I was brought up in a world, and I feel like I still go through it, where it's like a lot of times I share my vision, um, or I share what interests me, or what it is I'm trying to do in my life. And similar to you, people are like, "Oh, you're crazy. Why take it that serious, dude? You're 22 years old. Just enjoy your life." And it's like, I'm enjoying my life, but instead of living in the moment, I'm creating my moments,
Exactly.
and I'm being super intentional about that. And I'm going to say this, I'm going to tell you why holistic success is the only way and the right way to build your life. You want to know why? I was at a mastermind in Punta Cana, maybe like 2 months ago. And I was there with a friend. I'm not going to name drop him, but he sold a company for $50 million back in 2015. And while we were in the middle of the workshop, he touches upon an experience he had where it's like, I believe I may be butchering this, but like 5 to 7 years of him building up his company. It was grind, 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 chase the valuation, chase the numbers, chase the money in your pocket. And that company became his identity. It was
Yeah.
his all it was like it was everything. It was him,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and then he got to the point where he sold the company for $50 million, and he went into the biggest depression of his life shortly
Yep.
after.
Yep.
You
Yep.
want to know why? Because he was only the 1% when it came to business and finances, but
Yep.
he lacked in the other pillars of his life. So the reason why I say the holistic approach to success is the right way to do it is because it allows you to become abundant across different pillars of your life. Like you said, I'm very fortunate to be able to build a business, to be able to do this, to be able to have my amazing partner, to live in our home. But it's because I want to be abundant across different pillars of my life, because I
Absolutely.
truly feel that when I'm on my deathbed, like you said, I'm not going to be looking at my Lamborghini. I'm going
Yeah.
to be appreciating my grandchildren, and I'm going to be looking into the sunset,
Yeah.
So
Hundred
I
percent.
love that we're aligned in that aspect, man.
Well, so there's a couple different things I could say about this, but one of the things I want to say is like, as men, and I'm not to, different sexes and stuff like that. But as a man, I feel like my job is to provide and protect, right? And that could be totally different, looked at in different versions. But providing, can be looked at as financial, but it also can be looked at as date nights and stuff like that. Protecting, yes, it could be looked at as keeping safe and stuff like that. But are you in shape to do that? Do you have the mental capacity to do that and allocate that time? And that segues into, there's a saying that I always think about that there's two different sayings, but one is you can't fill somebody else's cup unless you fill your own, right? Because I look at it as, yeah, you could take from your cup and fill somebody's cup, but you want it to be an overflow of your cup. The only way you
Of
do
course.
that is to allocate to your mental and physical health. I don't care what anybody says. Every study's out there now. Mental and physical health is number one priority so you can perform at an optimal level in every other area of your life. Can you still be successful without it? Yeah. I know a lot of people that are really successful financially that don't work out or don't have a healthy relationship, but they're the number one guy or girl in their business. Absolutely, that's important to them. But the other one is a man has 1,000 problems when they're sick, or 1,000 problems when they're healthy, and a sick man only has one. So I think about those two things. Like every day I wake up, and you and I have talked about this, but I have sauna, cold plunge, red light, gym, everything at my house, and my mornings are like my sanctuary. If I don't get myself right, I can't serve my world right. And so that's where
Mm,
holistic success to me comes in. I believe I'm
wow.
the richest man in the world because I can walk downstairs in my townhome and have my full setup that I want, and nobody's bothering me in the morning. And then I have my dog and my wife making coffee for her, sending her off to work, all these things, and then I get to grind throughout the day. Like to me, that's the richest life I could ever imagine. Do I want a different house, maybe a different car down the road, stuff like that? Of
Of course.
course I do. But those are byproducts of everything else I'm working on. You know, the holistic part of being well rounded, I honestly feel like I live a retired life already because I get time
Yes.
to dedicate to myself like that. And I don't know,
Yes.
just my perspective.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. I couldn't have, or you couldn't have said it any better. I want to talk about something that this is going to be a little controversial. The 5 a.m. club, the 4 a.m. club. You know who I'm
Yep,
referring to
yep,
is those
yep.
people who say, yeah, you have to wake up at 4 a.m. and the first thing you do is
I
is
disagree.
look at yourself in the mirror and tell
Yeah,
yourself you're the man.
yeah, yeah.
Is that a personal thing, or is that something that
It's a
someone
personal
must
thing.
do to be successful?
So it's a absolutely phenomenal question, Lewis. So I never worked out in the morning. When I was starting my career, I was getting to the office at like 6:30, 7 o'clock. And it was funny because I just wanted to beat my boss in, just because he had to walk past my desk to go to his office. And I was trying to build a reputation, right? I thought that was hard work. You get there, you're the first one in, and you grind it out. When COVID happened, and then I would work out at night and do what I needed to do, right? But the only thing I did in the morning was wake up, shower, eat, and go to the office. It's what I thought I had to do and then I needed to do, right? When COVID happened, I started working out in the morning because I didn't have to travel to the office, right? They closed the office. And that opened up my day. But what I realized, man, was in those early hours of like silence, it was everything to me. It's bliss. It's pure bliss. It's pure, just genuine existence. And I'm fortunate to live right in front of this amazing park where my townhome is down here in Delray Beach, Florida. And there's walking trails and workout equipment, all kinds of stuff. And so I'll go out there before the sun is up and, weight vest, push up pull, squats at some of the equipment and stuff. And there's not a single soul. And so is it something that somebody has to do? No. I don't believe the people that say, oh, I got to wake up at 4 a.m. every single day. Yeah, you're a Navy SEAL or an Army Ranger, bro. Like, the average person that is not doing that every single day of their lives is not calloused in that way, and those guys are built different. I
Yes.
do wake up at 5, but I do on and off days. So 3 days at 5, then I'll sleep in, and then I'll get back to it, and then I'll sleep in and then start it again. So it's like a cycle for me, so I can stay level. So it's whatever works for everybody. But
Yes.
the one thing I'll say is you get up early before the world starts, and I think that's what a lot of people's perspectives is it's bliss, dude. And the times that I
Yeah.
do that, when I'm out in the field doing lunges across the football field and it's pitch black out, like there's been times, dude, like a tear will come to my eye, and it's only because I am taking advantage of my life, right? I'm purely existing and I'm doing the hard thing. And so, yes, that is why I think people should do it. But is it necessary? No. Do what fits your schedule. Do what fits your body. Everybody's different.
Do what fits your schedule. I'm going to stamp that. And I'm just to throw this message out there so the people listening can actually digest this. The morning routine, or the routine in general, is very relative to you. It's like outside of looking at a TikTok video of Alex Hermosi or some other business guru saying, "Oh, I wake up at 3 a.m. and the first thing I do is go run 13 miles." Like, hey, that's what works for him. That's what allows him to be optimized and at peak state. Before taking his advice and applying it to your life, take a look at yourself and say, hey, what are systems or what routines allow me to function at peak state? For me, I love the morning, being alone and quiet silence, being up before the rest of the world is. Why? Because I'm a person who tends to overthink everything. I overplan everything.
That's why we're such good friends, bro.
That's it. Yeah. So when I wake up and I don't have that at least 1 or 2 hours to plan out my day or set my direction or just be one with my thoughts, I feel like I'm all over the place. So I tend to wake up 5, 6 a.m. so I can sit down, set my intention for the day, know what needle moving activities are going to get me closer to my goals, and maybe followed by a run. Or now I joined F45, so I'll be training in the mornings,
Yeah.
and that's what worked for me. And I encourage everyone else listening to this to find the system that works for you. Set the morning routine that works for you, not for the video you're watching on TikTok.
Yeah. Well, dude, it's spot on. And listen, comparison is a thief of joy. And there's a lot of benefits that come from being able to go on and see content where people are doing really great things. But it's also, you think that you have to do that. If not, you're a failure. I've fallen into that trap. I'm sure you have. Everybody does. But like my wife is a great example. She likes to work out in the afternoons. She has more energy. So whereas I get up same time you do, and I go and I do my routine, she prefers to get up a little bit later than that and read in the morning. That's her thing. If she
There you
doesn't
go.
read, if she reads, she is happy as a clam the rest of the day. If she doesn't read, something's a little bit off, right? Same thing for me. If I don't stretch and I don't do, I don't do the cold plunge every morning, and I do it like 3 times a week, but if I don't do that physical activity in the morning, I'm off. My body aches. I don't think properly and stuff like that. So spot on.
Yeah.
What works for you should work for you. Just because something works for somebody else doesn't mean it's how your body and your mind will respond the same.
I love that, man. I want to talk about this. This has a lot to do with morning routines, stuff like that. Let's talk about habits, because I feel this applies to all the 18-year-old just getting started, the 25-year-old trying to figure it out and reinvent themselves, or the 45-year-old that's successful in business and just looking to scale across different pillars. Like, what habits did you have to develop to be a high caliber individual? Because your average Joe Schmo does not do what you do. You are in different ventures, you're excelling in different ventures, and you have your eye on legacy and impact. So, like, what are some habits that have been non-negotiables or highly empowering for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's definitely a few things that I could contribute and give credit to, like who I am and how I function. But to be a totally open book, honestly, there was a lot of fear around like being average. There was fear around just not doing something, not trying something, not failing and getting back up. Like nobody wants to go through pain, but when you go through pain, you get on the other side. It is the best feeling in the world, right? You got to crawl through the mud to appreciate the sunset, sunrise. So it started with, I think, a lot of the OCD, ADHD of just having to do something, right? Um, but obviously workouts is everything. And like, I don't have a desire to go be a bodybuilder or something like that. At 31 years old, people will say, I want my body to work well. I want it to do what it needs to do when it needs to do it. That's about it. And I want to feel good. But reading and writing changed my life, dude. Absolutely changed my life. And
Now, why?
I was never a reader or a writer, but when I was reading certain things, it expanded my mind and I became a lot more curious. And I said I'd start my reading journey like 5 years ago. So a little late to the game, I'd say. But, in my early 20s, maybe I'd read 1 or 2 books a year. For the trailing 4 or 5 years, I minimum 2 books a month. And it's various different topics. I mean, I read about investing in silver and currency, and I read about Navy SEALs, and then I read about self-help and whatnot. So it's all kinds of stuff. But then writing was everything for me, dude. And I'm not a diary based person. I can't sit there and write about how my day was, but there's a
Yeah.
couple good journals out there that it's a question a day. And it prompted me to think about something that I would not have normally thought about if I did not open it up and read that. And so I would force myself to sit there and write about the question and answer the question in my own perspective, whatever came to mind. I didn't want to spend too much time on it, something I could get done in 5 to 10 minutes, but it prompted me. It expanded me. It made me thought. We don't do that enough these days in our lives. Sit there and think, be present, be in the moment, put your phone down for a minute and let your mind wander. And so I became obsessed with that. And those two things, reading, writing, and I'll just throw workouts into that, were I got to give credit to it. Those were the habits that changed everything about me. And then if I added anything else to that, dude, it's just about wanting to provide for my beautiful wife, have a family. My family look at me and say they're proud of the son that they have. A lot of that comes into play. That's, the why aspect of it. But the habits, reading, writing, and exercising, you got to do it. And if you don't do it, if people say it's not for them, it's because they haven't spent enough time trying it.
Yes. Yes, that you hit that out the park with that last sentence. Dude, I believe that habits are everything. How you do anything is how you do everything.
Absolutely.
It's important for us as well, you're a little bit of an uncle. No, I'm just kidding. But like for I guess people in their early 20s, like it's really important to install the right habits, both for your health, for your wealth, but more than everything in your mindset, man.
Yeah,
Because
man.
if it doesn't, it's almost like if the car, it doesn't matter how nice the car is, if the engine doesn't work the right way, what's a car really worth, you
Yeah.
know? So I believe that mindset is the engine of a human being. And I come across almost every day limiting beliefs that I was indoctrinated with in my early upbringing by my parents, aunts, uncles, that I tend to question, and now I'm around more abundant individuals, people that I want to be like, and I'm like, "Wait, I was taught this growing up, and that was almost like tattooed into my mind,
Yeah.
and now you're saying this." So, that's why I think, like, setting habits that, expose your mindset to a almost like questioning your beliefs or expose your mindset to just growth, if you just want to throw that blanket
Yeah.
term on there, is
Yeah.
huge. Because if you're always living in this reality of like, hey, my child's and my prejudice, right, and you never question it, you will only really live that reality because that's the only thing you're subject to, you know. So
Yeah.
that's why I wanted to touch upon habits, because it's a huge part of one's development, and it's worked a lot for me. I want to now segue, not to make this so personal, but I have a friend. I call him a friend because I have a lot of love for him. He is, I believe, 18 or 19 years old. Very ambitious guy. Reminds me of when I was 18. He's in that pursuit. He has that warm sensation in his heart. He's going to college right now. He's selling real estate in New York City. And one of his biggest concerns were like, dude, like I want to start making money, but like I want to find that mentor. I want to just get into the right rooms. Like, do you have any advice for him?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to like, it's okay to not know. It's not okay to stop searching, right? And that I attribute that to myself because I did not know where I was going, and I sought out mentors and stuff like that. What I refused to do is to give up trying to figure out what that feeling was. And so, part of my vision is I don't really want to be a life coach or something. I specifically want to work with kids coming out of college or going through college to kind of do exactly this, work with them and show them what life truly could be and help them get to the mindset that I know they're destined for, but help them get there quicker. Like, I want to see somebody in their 20s do what I'm doing in my 30s. Like, that's how we make the world a better place, is to pay it forward. So advice for him would be, don't stop talking to people. Anybody that you meet, try to learn something about them. Talk less, listen more. So when you're around them, ask them questions and figure out how they got to be where they are, why they the way they are, and just digest. And a mentor instilled that into me early on, and it was about creating your own style. And that's how you kind of find success, right? You create your own style. But too many people will say, all right, Lewis, I really like the way you operate, and I'm going to model everything I do after you. Well, there might be a few things I don't like about how you operate. And if I do that, then I'm missing out on, areas that I could do it differently. So everybody you meet, you learn something from, and you take one or two things from each person and you create your own style. So what I did is never stop talking to people, and my biased opinion is that worked. And so I would that to him tell him, meet as many possible people as you can, no matter what room you're in. Go shake someone's hand. Uncommon interactions get you uncommon results every single day of the week. And so that person that you were nervous to talk to, or the compliment you were going to give, the door you were going to hold open, the question you were going to ask in class, right, the presentation you said yes to although you were nervous to, like, something good is going to come out of it. Even if you fail, something good is going to come out of it. Uncommon
Yeah.
interactions, uncommon results every day of your life.
Uncommon interactions, uncommon results. I love that. Let's close out this chapter, and I feel like I really want to drive this message home, not even to the individual or my friend that I'm referring to, but just anybody who may be dealing with this in their life. I believe there are two ways to find true alignment with the life you're trying to build as a young, aspiring entrepreneur, right? Or intentional being. Let's use that word. One, it's uncommon interactions give you uncommon results, right? It's chase the relationships, be intentional about the conversations you're having, listen more than you speak, right? And the mix I'm going to throw in there is skill building. And that's something that I did in my life, right? So to give context, develop a high income skill. For example, graphic design, video editing, AI prompting, whatever it may be, put your hands on one skill and become the best at it. Because what I
Love
did
that.
at 18, which kind of got me locked in with my adult mentor, was I was really into the whole game of media, content creation, social media kind of things. And I was all into that. I first went and identified someone that I wanted to be like, right? And it's not, you're not going and searching Dan Martell or Alex Hormozy because they are
Yeah.
exposed to the masses. But find that one local silent entrepreneur, use that skill and reach out to them and offer what you do for free.
Yeah.
Get yourself into that room. That's saying that I made a video on, and I will always preach this until the day I die. If you don't have a seat at the table, make sure you're in the room serving water. Take that
Love that.
conversation,
That's
take
cool.
that high income skill, do it for free, and do it until this man or woman is impressed. That is how you find your first mentor. That is how I did it, and that's how I continue to do it. So for that 18, 21-year old, you want to be successful, you want to be rich, you want to be holistically successful. Make sure you're having those conversations. Make sure you're building relationships. Make sure you're in constant pursuit of the life you are trying to build. And the second thing is accumulate the right skills and do it for free until you're noticed. It works. You've done it. I've done it. Anyone can do it, especially in today's
Yeah, yeah,
age.
yeah. Well,
You
so
know?
I got to tell a quick story about that. So when I was in college, I thought I wanted to go to law school. First class I took that I really excelled at, business law. And so I looked up all of the law firms around my campus and put a suit on and went and door knocked. And I had my resume and I had a letter about why I was coming there, just in case I didn't get to talk to anybody. And I door knocked maybe 5 or 6 shops. And I said, listen, I just want to be an intern. You don't have to pay me. I said, I'll sit in the background. I'll run your files or whatever. They called them runners. And I said, I just want to learn what this career is all about. And I said, seriously, you don't have to pay me a dime. I just want to add this experience to my resume and get the behind the scenes look before I decide to go to law school. Well, the first few people that I spoke to were like, no, we're good, we're good, we're good. And then the last one I went to, I remember it like it was yesterday, didn't answer the door. He was the smallest law firm. So I went to the big corporate ones first. And this guy was just, not calling Joe Smo, but like mom and pop shop, right? And didn't answer the door. So I put my letter in there and I started to walk away. And I was trying to find my maps. I didn't have a car. So I was trying to find my maps back to campus. And I had to walk back to campus in this suit. It's blazing sun. And all of a sudden, the door opens and he's like, "Did you just knock?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I just dropped that letter in there." And he's like, "Well, what are you knocking for?" I said, "I'm Florida State, thinking about going to law school, just looking for an internship, an unpaid internship, just to learn the business." And he's like, "You just walked here from campus?" It wasn't that far, but I was in a suit. And he's like, "Come inside, come into my office." So we sat there, we talked for like 25 minutes. He asked me what I was doing now. I was bartending. He's like, "What are you paying? What are you getting paid?" All this stuff. And he was like, "All right, show up here tomorrow at 8 a.m. and we'll start." I ended up working for him for like 2 months. Paid me like, I think it was $17 an hour, which was a lot of money back in like
There you go.
2016 or something.
Yeah, man.
Um, and it was just that essence of like going to your point, go do it for free, go learn and build that skill set. Now, I didn't learn how to be an attorney. I didn't go to law school. I learned that I didn't want to be an attorney. And I didn't want to go to law
Of
school,
course.
but I learned like characteristics of if you want something, you just got to go get it. You just got to run after
Yeah.
it. And so
Yes.
that I did it on my own. Nobody told me to do it, but I took so much away from that, and that just made me popped in my head. I haven't thought about that story in years, but you saying that, man, that was a pivotal moment in my life.
There you go, man. I think after we gave the doctrine of what to do, that was the perfect story to basically stamp the fact that that strategy works and it's worked for both of us. So I encourage anybody else out there that's eager to live a more abundant life or just become successful, do those two things. It does work.
Yeah,
Let's move into some of your ventures now because I feel
let's
that
do
that
it.
may pique a lot of the viewers' interest. What are you doing? What is Rob Bruce up to?
A lot. I mean, moral of the story, our whole conversation. I got a lot of pots on the kettle right now. I'm still doing commercial insurance, and so I've been doing that for almost a decade, and I focus entirely on real estate hospitality risks. So work with a lot of country clubs, but owners of any kind of asset class. I consider myself an expert in retail strip centers and industrial, but do a little bit of everything. And so my clients all own, operate, develop different kinds of real estate. And so I place the insurance for their policies to satisfy their lender requirements and stuff. And it's been awesome. It gives me so much flexibility in my day to day. Like nobody's bothering me. As long as I'm hitting my numbers, I'm good to go. And yes, there's opportunity cost of if I'm not sourcing new deals there because I'm focusing on something else, like writing my book. Yeah, but that's my passion. That's what I want my life to look like.
Of course.
At my end of my life, I'm not on my tombstone going to be the best insurance broker in the world. But that's given me a great career and a great network. And so that segued into getting my real estate license and looking for deals. And I've invested passively. I would like to get into more of an active investment. So I have some things going now. But then I recently launched Uncommon Clothing Co., which never really thought I would do. So if you go back to that burning sensation, never thought I'd write a book, never thought I'd want to go and speak on stage, never thought I would launch a clothing brand. Never thought I'd be an insurance broker, real estate investor. None of that was in my mind 10 years ago. But it's all filling my bucket these days, and I'm enjoying every part of it. So Uncommon Clothing Co., we started, let's see, it's been in the works since probably the end of 2024, but we launched this last December of 2025. And, a year in the making because we had to source things. We had to find suppliers, and we were building the groundwork and the foundation of getting everything off the ground. And so we have about 20 products now. We pride ourselves in our custom shirts, like the quality of these. I'll go on the record saying they're better than Aloe. They're better than Lululemon. Like they fit. It's an oversized fit, but if you downsize, it'll be a structured fit for you. But our hats as well. You're wearing one. I'm wearing one. It's got suede brims, but at its essence, man, and this story, but we wanted it to stand for something more than just clothing. We wanted it to represent, you said at the very beginning, a movement. And so it reaches out to people like yourself that when you put something on your body, you get really excited when it stands for something more, right? It says be uncommon on the side. You live that way because you're an uncommon person. And it's such a simple word that holds so much complex weight because it could really mean anything you want it to mean.
Yeah.
And so it kind of ties into the legacy thing. So those are the few ventures that I'm working on, and we're just at the tip of the iceberg for Uncommon. Working on a wellness side of it, so it kind of ties into our conversation. We're calling it the Uncommon Pursuit, where we're going to be doing podcasting and stuff like this. We've partnered with a lot of our local gyms and doing workouts with them, sponsoring their events and whatnot. But we're going to be doing uncommon stories. So I'll do a bio about somebody like yourself and interview you, and then we'll give you shout out on our website and our social media, because that to us is helping the world become a better place. Getting Lewis out there and them seeing who you are, what you're about, what you're bringing to the world, and then maybe we find somebody else because of that and we do the same for them. And it's I'm not asking you for anything except you're the green light on getting your name and face out there, because you make the world a better place, and we want more of that to happen. And so we got journals. I published 2 daily journals. We're working on a couple different books that'll be tied into it. And so it all goes to legacy, bro. All goes back to legacy.
That's amazing. So I have 2 things to say, and I'm going to say the shorter one before I say the longer one. One, guys, shop Uncommon Clothing. This is our first official sponsor, which I am truly honored. It's a pleasure, man. And you nailed it home, but more than just the apparel that is super high quality. I'm not even lying. Like when we first originally met, you said, "Hey, I'm quality first, quantity after," and I'm like, okay, anybody says that. My boy sent me a care package and some sick merch. And guys, this is like the most comfortable, and I'm gonna say this, and I mean this, most high quality shirt I've ever worn.
That's
Promise
right.
you that.
I love that,
I'm
man.
a Zara wearer. I wear a lot of things from like Primark. I'm not a huge spender on clothes, but like this shirt is super comfortable. I can wear this to a dinner out, or I can wear this as like a pump cover at the gym. Has a very minimal, simplistic kind of design on the back. That's sick. The hat, Rob, you don't even know this, but I'm not a hat dude. I have a
Yeah,
really big head,
you
and I don't
should be,
really
man.
look
It
good with
looks good
hats.
on you.
Yeah, but I love this hat. I wish you guys have to order so you guys could see the quality of this apparel. Use code the One Club for 15% at checkout. But that was the first thing. I just want to give some praise to the actual brand. The
Appreciate that,
second
bro.
thing was spoke about how you never thought you would be in insurance or real estate or even have your own clothing brands, but it all ties back to the pursuit of legacy. So there's something that Jeff Bezos actually shared at, I forget what exactly it was, but I made a video about this the other day. But it's about being super stubborn and fixed on the vision, but super flexible with the vehicle that gets you there, right? So same with me. I never thought I would be an auto body. I never thought that I'd be doing a podcast. You know, it's always something that I kind of want to do, but I never thought that I'd be having a sponsor or being connecting with high net worth individuals, all this jazz. But I've always been super locked in with my vision, and I've been super flexible with my vehicle. So a lot of times, us as human beings, because of ego, because of pride, because of, oh, this has got to work, we will continue to pursue something that isn't our best just because we have our identity tied to that thing, where it's like, hey, be flexible with that vehicle, that thing that you're doing, but be super fixed on the outcome, the vision. And I feel that's something that you're doing because you said it yourself, you know, like you are in insurance, you're in real estate, you're the founder of this great clothing brand, but at the end of the day, it all ties back to legacy.
Yep.
And that's something that I feel is embroidered into your heart, right? You can almost get it tattooed, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah, man. It
everything,
all ties
man.
back
It's
to legacy.
just we have one life, and we want to live it to the fullest. Do I want to, have a nice pair of shoes and, buy my wife a nice jewelry, necklace for our anniversary? Yeah, of course. Like we live in a world that's a possibility and accessible. Like if you saw my wall in my office, it's all memorabilia. So yeah, I've spent money on things that I admire. But at the end of the day, my grandkids are not going to look back on my life and say, wow, he was a great collector, No, I want them to say, my grandfather built this. He did this.
Yes.
This is what he was
Yes.
known for. This is who he helped. This was the impact and the footprint he left on the world. And a lot of people think this way, right? You and I being one of them. And I think the more accessible content is now, we can see a lot of people think this way. It's when people don't that it's hard for me to not think that they're missing an aspect of this opportunity that we have to live.
100%, man. I want to touch on something that we spoke about at the beginning. It's the whole aspect of like having abundance in media and distractions and all this noise and opportunity. And this is something that we all deal with. I've dealt with it a ton of times, and I'm sure you have too. It's shiny object syndrome. You know,
Yeah.
for someone who is well versed in different ventures, like how do you tackle shiny object syndrome? How do you cope with that? Like, tell me a little bit about that.
Dude, I am I'm a really good person to ask this question because I fell for that a lot. Well, I shouldn't say I fell for it a lot, but I've gotten distracted by it a lot. I've done a lot of networking and I'm in the right, I feel like I'm in some really good circles. And so somebody talks about an opportunity and it's like, all right, well, you can make some decent money doing this. Let me spend a little bit of time on this opportunity. Um, that is so easy to fall into that trap, you know? You said something at the very beginning is like find a skill set, become really good at it, and be known as that person. I agree with that full heartedly. The skill sets you evolve will overlap in other areas, and so my skill set was always connecting people. Like I love connecting people to help further their lives in some way. And so when I was building my insurance career and finding success there, I would connect clients and help them do deals, real estate deals, off market, and maybe they're JVing a deal or something like that. And so that was a venture that was like worth my time because it would probably I'd still continue to insure it or something like that. But when a shining object comes out and says, "Hey, Rob, you'd be really good at this," and I've been asked before, certain clients have asked me like, "Hey, come work for me, come do this, come try this," and it's like you need to stay grounded in what you're doing. And you and I have spent a lot of time on our vision and our one sheets and all these things, right? But unfortunately, not a lot of people get that opportunity to be in that mindset, right? They just don't get into that circle. But I had to stay grounded in like what I had in front of me The grass isn't always greener. People can't always do it better. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. But staying grounded for me was everything because I knew what I was doing was working. And
Hmm.
it catered to my vision and who I was and what I wanted to do. I don't want to do insurance forever. And if the opportunity presented itself, I would potentially leave. And I hope none of my clients hear this and say, "Oh, well, I got to get rid of Rob." A lot of my clients know this actually, um, but it serves me because there's residual income there. I build a book of business, and I have the flexibility to dedicate to real estate, to podcasts with you, to building a brand. And so, if I chase the shiny object syndrome of another broker coming to me and saying, "Hey, we'll offer you $500,000 to leave and come here and sell for us and this and that," well, what am I giving up? I'm giving up all this other flexibility and time and stuff like that. And so I think there's a maturity aspect there that comes into it, that ties into grounding, that ties into knowing who you are. So there's so many different perspectives to look at that. I know that's a complex answer, but there's just a lot of factors that I think at least come into my mind when I think of a better opportunity. It's not always a better opportunity, you know?
I like that. I like that. I think another angle to look at it as is because like I've been people have identified like, oh, hey, Lewis, you'd be really good at this, or you'll be really good at that, and that's a model or a concept of shiny object syndrome, where
Yeah,
someone presents you an opportunity, and it's up to you to decide whether you take it up or not. The
yeah,
other thing is via social media. Right. I'm going to use this example because I think he's a prime example. Carlton Dennis, you know that guy?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
I
he
follow his content
is
for sure.
yeah, he's good looking, stud dude, super successful. He has an accounting firm now. But to someone with like a naive mind that is just looking to get started and do life, right? They'll look at his content and get hit with shiny object syndrome rap like super quick because he makes accounting look sexy, right? So you'll look at his content and you'll be, whatever, washing cars or whatever it may be, and you'll be like, oh, you know what? Oh, it looks super cool to be an accountant. Like I want to be like
Yeah,
Carlton
they
Dennis.
simplify it.
Exactly. But I think a mental model to use is the only reason why what he does look sexy is because he's super passionate and obsessed with what he does. If you were super passionate and obsessed about what you did, you would be sexy to somebody else. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
So
and
it's
he's
like,
just putting content out there. If you were obsessed with washing cars and you did a film about how you actually tackle this rim, there's a lot of car enthusiasts that'll see that and say, "Wow, he made his dream become a reality and he turned his passion into something and he monetized it." I
yeah,
completely echo with you what you're saying. But it also goes
the I
comparison is a thief of joy, right?
exactly, exactly. I truly believe that the success you're looking for isn't in another venture, isn't in another business. It's within the work that you're avoiding. Because when you
Yeah,
really have depth in your craft in your business, the thing you founded, you started, and you go all in on that, as I am in with the One Club, you are with your ventures. Like I'm able to create something that can inspire other people, and I'm sure there's probably someone out there, maybe not now, but
yeah,
when the podcast grows to be bigger, where they're going to be like, oh, cool, I want to have my own the One Club, but that it's not that the grass is greener on this side. It's the fact that I, at that point, I'm probably going to be 5, 10, 15 years into it with the One Club podcast, where it's like, hey, I've become obsessed with this because it's my baby.
yeah,
So that's kind of just like a mental framework that I want to throw out there for shiny object
yeah,
syndrome for
yeah,
anybody who may be dealing with it. Let's move into something that really interested me. So you are a commercial insurance broker, dabbling into real estate, have Uncommon Clothing brand, but you're publishing books, writing books. What exactly are you doing in that realm?
Yeah, so again, I never thought I'd be a writer, but I spent a lot of time journaling, those prompted question journals, and there's a lot of great ones out there. But when I was going through it, I realized I could do it differently. And, a lot of those journals are about, um, they're very therapeutic, I should say. And so they're very good. And I've used a lot of them over the years. But I wanted to do one that was about, uh, ambitious, the search, right? Legacy. Like who do you want to be? When you look in the mirror, who are you? Oh, no, not nobody. Not enough people spend enough time understanding who they are because there is so much noise around us that they say, "Oh, I like that," but that's not them, right? Who are you? And so we did two journals. We're calling the Uncommon Pursuit journals, phase one and phase two. So phase one is all about building yourself. Yeah, there you go. You got one.
We got the first one here.
Um, phase one is all about building yourself. So it's very, you know, interesting questions to understand who you are and how you view certain things. What are your perspectives on these topics? Phase two is get to know yourself. We want to dumb it down, simplify it. It doesn't have to be so serious. Get to know yourself is taking phase one about build yourself, all of those questions, and utilize them for building your life. Like, who are you? You figured that out. Now spend the time on digging deep on what you could bring to the table and what you could create, the service that you could bring to the world, all of that. And so it's less therapeutic and more it's building yourself. Like it's who you are, understanding who you are, and taking that to the next level. And I just don't think enough people do that. And I did that, and my life changed. My perspectives changed. How I served everybody around me changed. Who the clarity I had about myself changed, and ties into the legacy. If it impacted me that way, I know it'll impact somebody else that way. So I'm like, let me leave my footprint. So that's one subset. The other one we're working on is, one of my favorite authors is Ryan Holiday.
Love them.
He's a very stoic person, and he has a lot of he credits a lot of his stoicism to other mentors and stuff like Robert Greene. But I read one of his books, and it was a page a day. Reading is very time consuming, right? My wife will read 300 pages a week. It's crazy. I don't know how she does it, but for me, when I sat down to read, I thought that I was kind of wasting time, like I could be doing other things. So I'm like, what if it was just a page a day that just like fired me up and it was part of my routine in the morning? And that's what it became. So Ryan Holiday published this great book, and it's literally a page a day, stoicism perspectives and how to go through life. And then there's quotes in there. I'm like, why I also can do this. Like I can do this in a different way, in a more ambitious way, in a way that you can search for what life could be. And so I've been working on that one for about a year, and I'm hoping to publish it by the end of May. And then I'll say the last one. I know it's a long-winded response. The last one is, again, I'm calling it the blueprint, mile wide, inch deep. I don't claim to be an expert in any of these things, but I'm interviewing a lot of experts who are, and I'm bringing to the table what I've learned throughout my life and trying to teach other people how to do it. And so it's everything from why you should get your blood work done to why you should, potentially work with a money manager, or at least learn how to invest money in various different ways to diversify stuff, and why therapy is important, and why, networking can change your life. Like, it's a mile wide, inch deep. And I think that can just pay it forward and make somebody's life a little bit better earlier on, so they can conquer the world sooner than they thought they could. And I think that's my footprint. That's how I make the world a better place.
That's so great, man. One question comes to mind while you were elaborating all that. Rob, how does one find their purpose?
Whew. Yeah, that's tough. So you just have to try so many things. And I think the people that don't find their purpose, and this, the people who don't find their purpose are the ones that are trying to plan on finding their purpose. You just have to start. You just have to go. You have to say yes, even though if you don't have an answer. You have to commit, even if you don't know how you're going to do it. Because through the process is where you find that clarity and knowledge and experience. And I fell victim to this early on. It's like, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? I don't know. You're not going to know. You're not just going to say, that's my purpose, I'm going to chase this. Very few people do. But going through the movements and the process of everything around you in your life, you're going to uncover, right? You're going to wipe away the dirt, and you're going to see that's actually who I am, and that's what I'm destined to be. And for me, it's helping people achieve a different mindset. Now, does that happen through insurance? No. Does that happen through real estate? No. Does that happen through my brand? Not really. The wellness side will. But I've had the pleasure of mentoring people through that process, and that's how I figured it out. I've had the ability to be mentored through the process, and how I can pay that forward. That's how I figured it out. And when I think about legacy, I think about being on my deathbed and wanting to fill a stadium of how many people that say, Rob made my life better. I want my name to carry weight way before I'm gone, way after I'm gone, I mean. And all the different things tie into that. So I don't need to go be some motivational speaker. I can fill that bucket in multiple different avenues that can be my vehicle to do so. So my advice to finding your purpose, you just got to say yes, and you got to try. Because you might discover something throughout that process that actually is part of your why. That is part of your
Yes.
purpose, and you would have never thought so.
Yes, I love that. You could I The way that you're able to put together your words, man, is deserves a standing ovation, right? Because you're great, man. You should be a motivational speaker. The way that you compose yourself. So the reason why I asked that is because finding your purpose was something that I went down the rabbit hole of when I was younger, like 18, 19, where it's just like, oh, I feel like life would be a lot easier if I found my purpose. But you said it, and I will stamp my approval on this. It's like the simple thing of seek and ye shall find. Instead of planning, oh, I'm going to find my purpose this week by doing this, it's like, just do. Energy in motion stays in motion. As you search and say yes to different things, you will come across conversations, questions, or people that will allow you to uncover your purpose. But with that being said, I want to take the blanket off of something that will require you to be vulnerable.
Let's go.
You've been in your uncommon pursuit. You like how I'm throwing those words out there?
I love it.
You've been in your uncommon pursuit, but it's also very common to encounter failures and challenges and things that maybe broke you. Let's give the spotlight to that as well, because as much as the good gives you growth, the bad also helps you grow as well. So, what are some of the challenges, failures, or moments you've had where you've really been tested by life?
I love it, man. One of the biggest things that I hold on to is, everybody likes the sunrise or sunset, right? But unless you've actually crawled through the mud, I referenced this earlier, unless you've actually crawled through the mud, that sunset or sunrise is never going to look as sweet as it could, right? If you just wake up and you see a sunrise every single morning, it might get dull to you. I mean, it still doesn't for me. It's still so blissful. But when you go through some stuff and then you see that, you're like, it's a whole different perspective. And so I fail every single day, dude. And every venture that I'm a part of, whether I'm setting something up for Uncommon and when we were setting up your affiliate links and stuff like that, I was using a new software. I couldn't figure out how to set it up and trial and error and all these things. When I was prospecting new deals, like I got a deal that fell through the other day and I saved them a ton of money and it didn't happen because of one reason or another. That cost me a big paycheck. That cost me time with my family. That cost me future earnings to provide for somebody. That cost me donations to a charity. So that was a big failure. But when I think of, pivotal moments, they didn't necessarily happen from an external cause. So it was an external thing that occurred, but it was what I did next. Because nobody in their right mind fails and then responds in 30 seconds and says, all right, let's go. Right? The argument is, all right, well, you're playing football and you get hit, you fumble, but you immediately respond, pick up the ball, and you run for a touchdown. That's a different example. So people have said that to me. That's why I just said that. And I'm like, it's besides the point. I'm saying something horribly wrong happens in your life, and what do you do next? And depending on that shapes potentially the rest of your life. So
Right.
I'll say one example, and we're going to get vulnerable because that's what you asked for. When I was in high school, um, you know, my brother and I had a tough relationship. Actually, I think it was before. I think it was in middle school. My brother ran away, and I couldn't.
Wow.
He was bigger than me, and so he was able to kind of like push me around and leave. And I couldn't. We didn't have cars. We were like 10, 11 years old or something, and I couldn't find him. For a long time, and I felt accountable. I felt, although he was my big brother, that's something that ate away at me for a really long time because I thought he didn't want to be around me. I thought that he didn't want to have a relationship with me. It was just us two home alone kind of thing, and he just left. And so it took a long time to understand certain things about that. But to me, that was a failure because it calloused me, not because I caused it, not because it was my fault, but it was something that changed the direction and perspective of how I view things. And to me, that's failure. That's PTSD. That's trauma. You don't have to get hurt to actually be affected by trauma. You just have to change the way you view life. That's actually the definition of trauma if you look it up in a therapy sense. And
I didn't even
so
know that.
Yeah, and well, that I learned it myself, and so it's like I went through a lot of stuff. You know, a few years later, my dad got cancer when I was 17, and
Wow.
first time I ever saw my dad cry, and he sat me down at the table and started talking about what was going to happen if he was no longer there, and I didn't want anything to do with that conversation, and to me, life stopped. And again, I didn't do anything to cause that, right? It wasn't my fault. I didn't fail at it, but it changed the way I was going through life. And it changed the way of how I view hard situations. Because at the end of the day, that is failure. It's just challenge. And any challenge you face is considered failure. And so, and I know that's not business related, but I wanted to get vulnerable because I think you asked for it. Those two things really shaped on when anything bad happens to me, dude, in business, it's a joke. It's comical. Because it's like, that's not important. It really is not. Your podcast, your next episode, this episode could completely bomb. And people could say it's not, give you bad reviews and stuff like that. That's comical. Because guess what? You still have your partner. You still have your dog. You still have your house. You still have your ambition. You still have your health. That's what matters. This podcast doesn't really affect any of that, except maybe some of your mental health. But I say this because to me, that's my biggest challenge in life is like going through those things. That's what helped me when I face challenges in business and these ventures that doesn't matter. You just go. You just keep going. It doesn't matter.
Dude, that is so good. That is
Long
so
winded
good. And I
response, so I apologize for that. But
No, 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 you're fine, man. I mean, I feel that through those responses, that's where the gems hide. That's where the true wisdom is. And I thank you for opening up and sharing that because
yeah,
I didn't know that, and we've interacted multiple times. And I feel that it's also a very real thing. Like that's something that I want to emphasize here on this podcast. It's like a lot of podcasts or content out there talks about the highlight reels of someone's life,
yeah,
a lot of the good and the positive outcomes, but we live in a very much real world where real world things happen every day. So it's important to give the good theory, but it's also important to give context of to how to deal with the bad, and how you can dig up good in the bad. So
yeah.
that's
And
why
you
I
learn
kind of
a
wanted to ask
lot
that.
through that.
Yeah, man, that's huge. I feel that this podcast is really where you're gonna like this, where the uncommon pursuit meets holistic success, because success is infinite, it's not finite, but let's use it as an infinite kind of concept, right? So holistic success is up here, but you are in an uncommon pursuit until you achieve holistic success. So that's why I love the fact that we've partnered together and we're creating a movement and a legacy together, because one really goes into the other and vice versa.
Absolutely.
um and the question I want to end off this show with is, put yourself in this situation. You are 85 years old. You are in the hospital because, God forbid, but something bad happened to you, and you're lying on your deathbed. You only have 3 more days to live. What do you want to be known for?
I lie awake thinking about this, dude. And I'll try to keep the answer short because I could go on a rant about this. What I pride myself in, Lewis, over everything else that I'm chasing in my life is that I show up. I show up for my people. And the story that I would say is on my bachelor party, before I was getting married. We're sitting around the fire, me and all my best friends, we're out in the mountains of Blue Ridge, Georgia. And one of my buddies, and yeah, we're sipping on some bourbon, having some cigars, and one of my buddies goes, let's say one thing, or let's say our favorite thing about Rob, and then let's say something we hate about Rob. And he was just making a joke. I had 12 guys there. Every single one of them, brother, said that Rob shows up. They're like, there's nothing, we could go on and say good things about Rob, but he said, he is known for how he shows up. No matter what time it is, what the situation is, where you are, what you need. Maybe I don't answer the call right away, but you'll always hear back from me. I will show up for you if you need me. But that's catered to the few that I love and care for. And yes, do I help out strangers? Of course. But I'm saying, you need me, brother, I got you. And then the thing they hated, they said, is you spoil your wife too much. And if she posted it, my wife asked me, why aren't you doing stuff like Robin's? But
That's
that's what I
hilarious.
hope, man. When I'm on my deathbed, I hope people say a lot of different things about me in my obituary, and remind me to say something about obituary. Let's say one more thing about that. But
Mhm.
I hope they say Rob showed up for me when I needed him.
That's huge. What did you want to talk about,
So
obituary?
one of the
That's actually the first time I've heard of that word. No one out there roasts me on that, but, like, yeah, it's completely new
so
to
an
me.
obituary is what they read about you when you're dead and gone, man.
I knew that,
Um,
duh.
I think one of the most interesting things that you can do in your life is write your own obituary as a
Mm,
practice. For somebody like you would love it. Other people I've said it to, they're like, "You're weird. You're crazy. You're a sicko. Like, why do you want to write your own obituary?" I'm like, "It's not because I'm, dying or something, or I'm thinking about death.
yeah,
It's because it makes me work towards what I want to be known for,
of
you know?
course, of
And
course.
so it's an amazing exercise, dude. If no one's ever done it, do it, try it, thank me later.
I love that, man. I love that. I feel that I can truly talk to you, man, for hours upon hours. But truth is, not everyone's going to listen to a 5 hour podcast. At least
Yeah.
I'm not at that point yet. But Rob, I want to start off by thanking you, man, from the bottom of my heart for taking the time out of your day, being vulnerable, being present, and showing up for me, man. You are standing on what people identify of about you. So I want to start off by thanking you. And for those of you listening, guys, this is what we're on episode 3. Yeah, episode 3 of the One Club podcast. I feel myself getting more and more comfortable with these interactions as we go. I feel that the message and the value is there for those who listen. And all I really ask for the audience listening is that constructive criticism is always welcome. Feedback in terms of the topics you want us to cover, conversations you want to hear, or people that you would like me to speak to is always welcome. Because aside from this being a passion project for me, it's a movement, it's the legacy that I'm trying to create for my life. And because other people have always poured their wisdom into me, I want to do that as I write my own story for those who want it. So again, Rob, thank you so much.
Thank
For
you,
those
brother.
for those of you listening, stay tuned for the next episode. We are going to continue dropping gems and do this in an intentional way. So with that being said, man, we are all set. See you guys on the
Thank you,
next one.
brother. Till next time.